3 spine-chilling true camping encounters, exposed, terrifying mysteries that haunt every adventurer. The campfire crackled and popped, casting eerie shadows that danced among the trees, flickering like phantoms. The Johnson family, with cozy faces aglow in the firelight, had no idea of the horrors lurking just beyond the flickering light. Sitting under a blanket of stars in the Smoky Mountains, they were far from their safe, familiar Nashville, and that thrill of adventure quickly turned to tension. "Did you hear that?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Jake, the protective father, felt a chill wash over him. He shook his head dismissively, but couldn't ignore the rustling in the dark. Maybe it was nothing, just raccoons or deer or the old oak trees creaking in the night. But each sound scraped against his nerves like fingernails on a chalkboard. "Just some wildlife, nothing to worry about," he said, forcing a smile. Lisa nodded, but a tightness in her jaw betrayed her anxiety. Sam, not fully understanding, gathered closer to his sister. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." As night fell completely, the revelations of their surroundings took on a sinister tone. As Mia and Sam shared ghost stories, Jake felt their laughter suffocated by the dark. He pulled out his phone, reassuringly checking for a signal, but found none. This was a digital black hole, a confinement amplified by the darkness, pricking at the edges of his mind. The legend of the Watcher twisted in his thoughts, a spirit that roamed the woods, monitoring campers with a predatory gaze. A creeping dread seeped into their meals, even as they enjoyed dinner under an expanse of stars. Then, with the glow of their finished campfire fading, odd symbols began appearing on the trees around their campsite. Their smudged outlines seemed to whisper secrets from the ancient earth. Jake felt a wave of nausea wash over him as he stared, connecting the dots of the local lore he had tried to ignore. The second night brought more unsettling occurrences: a misplaced pot, echoes that sounded like whispers, trees seemingly bending at odd angles. Sam clutched Mia tightly, panic locking his limbs. On the third night, after discovering more frightening symbols carved into the trees, Jake's heart raced. Were they truly being watched? One evening, Mia wandered off, drawn by a voice that was as melodic as it was chilling. Jake sensed the shifting darkness, his heart pounding as he searched for her. Time hung like heavy mist, and bought seconds transformed into small eternities. Frantically calling her name, he and Sam dashed through the brush. Suddenly, they separated, each tick of the clock tightening the noose of fear around them. Jake stumbled upon a clearing, breathless and sweat-slicked, realizing too late that something more than myths danced among the trees. The Watcher wasn't just a spirit, it was real, cunning, and malevolent. He felt cold fingers of panic grip him as he swung back, but Mia's laughter sounded like a siren's call, taunting him from the depths of night. In their fight to survive, fragile bonds began to fray, and familial trust withered like the dying embers of their once inviting fire. With the moon hanging high, fear dripped like sweat from his brow. As Jake glanced back over his shoulder, a rustle from the bushes stopped his heart. Was it the spirit they had summoned, or something much closer, hidden in the deep shadows of the trees, preparing to strike? The night breathed heavily, and the hunt was just beginning. The air was thick with tension as Jake's heart raced, the rustling sound growing closer, insistent. It was a sound unlike any animal he could name, a subtle crunch, like twigs snapping underfoot, almost deliberate, almost mocking. He swallowed hard, searching the dark for any sign of Mia. "Sam," Jake hissed, trying to keep his voice steady. "Stay close." Sam's wide eyes reflected the flickering shadows, his small frame trembling. I can't find Mia." The dread in Jake's chest expanded, pooling around his stomach like a stone. He turned, scanning the ominous treetops arching over the clearing, shadows merging into one. The wilderness felt alive, pulsing with an ancient energy that sent shivers down his spine. "Stay here," he commanded, forcing the words out, knowing he had to keep Sam safe, but fear clawed at him, urging him to find Mia. The laughter, sweeter and more sinister than before, echoed like an enchanting song, drawing him in. Ignoring the tremor in his hands, Jake stepped deeper into the dark, following the sound, trusting the instinct that screamed she needed help. It had to be a trick of the night, the kind of magic he'd laughed off earlier, but now it felt real, alive, and hungry. "Mia!" he yelled, desperation lacing his voice. Nothing but silence answered, heavy and suffocating. Shadows flickered in his peripheral vision, a flash of movement. He whipped around, breath hitching. Out of the corner of his eye, he thought he saw a figure, tall and motionless, looming just beyond the reach of his flashlight. It felt wrong, an unnatural form that blended with the trees. Jake stumbled back, his skin prickling as icy fear coursed through him. "Please," he breathed, eyes wide, the vacancy of the figure penetrating deeper than the dark itself. "Show yourself." A flitter of white shimmering in the darkness caught his attention. He advanced cautiously, the air heavy with unsaid words. Suddenly, a shrill cry cut through the night, a wail that was unmistakably Mia. It originated deeper in the woods, threading through the trees like a ghostly apparition. "Mia!" Jake's heart pounded, adrenaline surging as he pushed forward, dodging twigs that snapped underfoot, breathless with determination. But the earlier laughter echoed again, close. Too close. It felt like a taunt, every sound a reminder of the dark entity that haunted the woods. Then he saw it, a glimpse of familiar clothing, Mia's jacket flapping in the wind, glimmering faintly in the moonlight. His hope soared before shattering as he approached. She was standing still, her back to him, swaying gently. "Mia!" he shouted again. "What are you doing? Come back!" In that instant, she turned. Her face was blank, eyes wide and unseeing, yet smiling, a distorted smile that sent ice through his veins. The woods fell silent, but for the rush of blood in his ears. "Mia, what's wrong?" He took a hesitant step forward, but something stopped him. Her lips moved, whispering words he couldn't hear, and then she began to laugh again, that same haunting, melodic sound, but now it sent a wave of terror rippling through Jake. The Watcher wasn't just a ghost keeping an eye on them. It had claimed Mia. The blood froze in his veins as realization struck him like a blow. He was too late. Suddenly, Mia's expression changed, twisting into an expression of dread. "Dad, run!" Jake bolted, losing himself in panic, his breaths echoing the pounding of his heart. Branches clawed at him as he tore through the woods, adrenaline propelling him faster. Behind him, laughter crackled like thunder, echoing off the trees, full of malicious delight. It was hunting him now. Would he find Sam? Would they both escape whatever had taken Mia? As darkness enveloped him, he dared to glance back, and in that moment he caught a glimpse of something monstrous, lurking just beyond the shadows, far beyond the reach of light. Only one thought hung in the air, thick with dread. He had awakened something that was never meant to be disturbed. And as the forest closed in around him, the darkness had its prey. What had he truly unleashed? The underbrush tore at Jake's legs as he sprinted, every step against the unseen entity pursuing him. It felt like the forest was shifting around him, limbs of trees bending as if trying to block his escape. The laughter, cruel and echoing, filled the air, a dark symphony of madness that was now playing for his ears alone. With every heartbeat, he pushed harder. There had to be some way out, a path leading him back to safety. He imagined Sam's frightened face, the way his little boy had looked up to him with trust. Jake couldn't fail him. Not now. "Stay with me," he shouted into the darkness, even though he was alone, the abyss threatening to swallow him whole. But deep within that unsettling laughter, he heard another sound. Mia's name, whispered like a chant, carried on the wind. The words slithered inside, the unsettling laughter. His head confusing him with dread. Momentum carried him downhill, where the ground became slick and treacherous. Suddenly, he skidded to a stop, catching his breath. The trees parted slightly here, granting him a brief window of moonlight, illuminating the underbrush ahead. Fingers trembling, he raised the flashlight, sweeping it across the area. The light wobbled, darting between twisted roots and gnarled branches, haunted silhouettes that danced in the beam. Then he saw it, a dark shape creeping toward him. A figure, a shadow that moved without sound. It was still too far to see clearly, but it was close enough to feel, a bone-chilling presence that sent a fresh surge of panic racing through his veins. "Mia?" Jake called, voice trembling, his throat dry. No answer. Only the laughter, deeper, more resonant than before. He turned to run again, but something snagged his foot. The earthy scent of damp soil clouded his senses as he fell forward, crashing down against the ground. The flashlight tumbled from his grip, extinguishing the fragile light. The darkness swallowed him whole. "Jake!" The voice was faint, desperate. He couldn't tell if it was real or another trick of his fraying mind. "Help!" "Mia?" He crawled forward, digging his fingers into the cold soil, dread gnawing at his gut. "Mia!" he shouted into the void, fighting against the encroaching numbness the dark was weaving around him. "Where are you?" But the only reply was that eerie laughter, like it knew something he didn't. Panic settled into anger. He pushed to his feet, heart racing, and stumbled through the gloom, listening intently, searching for the familiar sound of her voice, terrified of that malicious laughter lurking just behind him. Ahead, he spotted something, a structure, faint and ghostly among the swaying trees. A cabin? His feet found new resolve as he approached, a sliver of hope cutting through the fear. But as he reached out to touch the door, the wood creaked, and suddenly he froze. Jake could feel eyes upon him, relentless and suffocating, shifting closer in the shadows. The door swung open with a horrific groan, revealing a dark interior that seemed to breathe a haze of despair. He took a hesitant step inside, the air heavy with decay. The silence screamed. "Jake!" The voice again, softer. It wasn't Mia, but it was familiar. He turned sharply. There, blank eyes stared back at him from a dark corner. "Sam! Dad!" The boy stepped forward, but Jake raised his hands protectively, the urgency of Mia's absence clawing at him. "Where's Mia, buddy?" Panic mingled with disbelief, pumping adrenaline through his veins. "Mia's gone," Sam mumbled, tears brimming in his eyes. "Gone where?" Jake shouted, the walls of the cabin closing in around him. That laughter erupted again, swirling through the cabin as if the very walls were mocking him. "Dad, it's too late," Sam whispered. Jake staggered back, confusion crashing over him like a wave. He had to fight, had to protect his boy, yet he felt trapped. The darkness around them thickening like a thick curtain. Behind him, the door slammed shut, sealing them inside. "Run," Sam said, the whisper barely more than a breath. At that moment, the laughter turned to shrieks, unearthly and twisted, like a nightmare taking shape. Jake tightened his fists, searching frantically for a way out. The walls appeared to pulse, closing in ever tighter, the laughter drowning out every coherent thought. He had to act, but what awaited them in the dark? Clutching Sam's hand, he scanned the shadows with frantic intensity. There had to be a way out, but was anything truly safe anymore? Dread coiled in his stomach like a snake, and with that shearing realization, the hunter had become the hunted. Could they escape, or had they walked into a trap? The shadows shifted again, alive and hungry. The laughter crescendoed, reverberating off the walls like a sickening melody. Jake's heart slammed in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he held Sam's hand tighter. They needed to get out, now. "Follow me," Jake urged, masking his own terror while trying to project strength. He squinted into the darkness, searching for an escape, but the cabin, with its warped and splintered walls, felt like a living thing, shifting and breathing around them. A splintering crack echoed from behind, a door buckling under unseen pressure. The shadows quivered, a pulse that quickened as the source of the laughter drew closer. They were not alone. "Dad, I'm scared," Sam whimpered, his small voice trembling. Jake swallowed hard. "Me too, buddy, but we have to stay brave." He glanced at the window, a black pane showing only the night's murkiness. The woods outside thrummed eerily under the weight of anticipation. An idea sparked, but it was a half-formed plan, dangerous yet necessary. "Come on," he tugged Sam toward the back of the cabin, toward a grimy window obscured by dust and shards of cobwebs. As they neared it, the house groaned, an unwilling participant in their escape. A gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the scent of damp earth, and something else, something rotten. Sam clung to his father, wide-eyed, as Jake leaned closer to the window, a rush of hope igniting inside him. "Can you boost me up?" Jake asked, voice steady. "I'll take a look outside." But Sam shook his head. What if it's worse out there? Jake hesitated, a pit forming in his stomach. "I have to know." Just then, a rush of cold air swept through the room, causing the walls to pulse as the laughter morphed into guttural growls. An otherworldly melody that seeped into his bones and sent a shiver down his spine. "Dad!" Sam's voice quivered, the boy's small body pressed against Jake as he scanned the shadows, searching for safety. "Stay close." Jake climbed onto a chair to reach the window, but as he did, a figure emerged from the darkness behind him. A twisted face, grinning wide, eyes hollow and white. Jake spun around, heart hammering. "No!" he screamed, fear igniting every nerve in his body. But the figure simply laughed, its head bobbing in a sickly rhythm. The darkness behind it seemed to pulse, an inky mass swarming toward them. "Run!" Jake yelled. He dropped from the chair, urgently pulling Sam back toward the front door. It slammed shut again, echoing the threat of what lay behind them. Each step sent waves of dread flooding his veins. With nowhere left to go, Jake dashed toward the cabin's staircase, where worn wooden steps creaked underfoot. "We need to hide!" He pushed Sam ahead of him, their breaths ragged, hearts pounding an erratic drumbeat against the surrounding stillness. At the top, he found a small room, barely larger than a closet. Tucking Sam inside, he squeezed in after, desperately pulling the door shut. The darkness enveloped them like a thick mantle, muffling their heavy breaths. From below, the laughter swirled again, a mocking chorus that echoed off the cabin's walls. "Where are you?" it taunted. "Come out to play." Jake gripped Sam's shoulder, squeezing to comfort him and himself. They could hear the faint sound of movement below, a slow, deliberate pace. "It's coming," Sam whispered, pale and terrified, each word barely escaping his lips. Jake swallowed hard, mind racing. "We can't let it find us." Suddenly, footsteps thundered up the stairs. Something heavy crashed against the door, rattling the frame. Panic surged inside Jake like a wild beast. "Hold on," he whispered, heart pounding as he held Sam close, preparing for the worst. Then silence. All they could hear was the pounding of their own hearts. But outside, a new sound emerged, a soft, high-pitched giggle, almost childlike. It sent a chill through Jake, raising the hair on the back of his neck. "Mia?" he thought, dread wrapping around him, squeezing tighter. Just as he dared to hope, Sam tugged on his sleeve. "Dad?" In that moment, the door shuddered again, but this time it swung open, revealing only darkness. "Let's go," Jake urged, pushing against the encroaching shadows with Sam at his side. But what awaited them in the night? Had they truly escaped the jaws of darkness, or had they just traded one nightmare for another? The shadows outside shifted, and the sounds began to converge. The forest was not done with them yet. Jake stepped out into the darkness, pulling Sam behind him. The night swallowed them whole, a suffocating cloak that muted the world around them. Each creak of the cabin seemed amplified, a reminder of what they had just fled. "Dad, where are we going?" Sam's voice cracked as he stumbled over a root, his small hand slipping from Jake's grip for a split second. "Stick close," Jake whispered, his words low and urgent. The woods were alive with unsettling sounds, creaking branches, rustling leaves, and the distant echo of laughter that still lingered in the air like a choking fog. They paused, Jake's breath misting in front of him. He scanned trees, their outlines shifting like dark specters against the starlit sky. A flicker of light appeared between the trunks, pulsing like the heartbeat of something very much alive. "Look!" Sam gasped, pointing toward the glow. "Stay here," Jake commanded, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his own fear. He edged closer, each step careful on the uneven ground. The light flickered again, illuminating a clearing just ahead. As he stepped forward, his heart raced. It was a fire, but something seemed off. The flames danced, twisting in a rhythm that felt wrong, almost mocking. Around it sat shadowy figures, their faces obscured, but Jake felt their eyes upon him, cold, unyielding, and filled with malice. "Jake!" Sam's whisper twisted in his ear, pulling him back from the edge of curiosity. The forest around them felt hungry, alive, and ancient. "Maybe they can help us?" Jake murmured, battling the siren call of the fire. Deep down he knew it was a trap, yet he could not shake the feeling that this might be their only chance for safety. Before he could decide, a loud cackle erupted from behind him, shrill and disembodied. "Hiding in the dark? That's cute!" The laughter sliced through him like glass, and before he could react, the figures around the fire stood in unison, their movements synchronized in an eerie dance. "Run!" Jake yelled, grabbing Sam's hand and sprinting back into the trees, the pulsing glow behind them fading into the depths of the night. Each heartbeat echoed in his ears, drowning out every other sound. Branches clawed at their clothes, but they pressed on, adrenaline pushing them deeper into the forest. They didn't stop. He couldn't let the fear take over. They had to find something, anything, that could shield them from whatever hunted them. The trees soon thinned, leading them to a moonlit patch of earth littered with leaves and debris. Panting, Jake turned to catch his breath. "Stay quiet," he warned, glancing over his shoulder. They huddled together, heartbeats synchronized as they listened. The cackle had stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence, heavy and oppressive. Shadows shifted, barely visible, creeping into the corner of his vision. "Dad," Sam whispered again, his voice trembling. "I know," Jake started, but suddenly the ground beneath them shook, not from an earthquake, but as if something massive was approaching. The earth gave a deep rumble, a warning. Whatever was out there was no longer hiding. Then he heard it, the soft sound of breathing. Not the rustle of leaves or the distant animal calls, but something thick and labored right next to them. He turned slowly, dread sinking in like a stone in his gut. Emerging from the shadows was a creature carved from the nightmares of his childhood, something vaguely human, but twisted in unimaginable ways. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, reflecting the moonlight like twin lanterns of malevolence. "Is this what you sought?" it hissed, voice like gravel scraping across bone. "Two lost souls in need of a game." Thoughts of escape vanished in an instant as panic seized Jake's heart, rooting him in place. Sam grabbed his shirt, eyes wide with terror. Then, in an instant, inky tendrils shot out from the creature, lashing toward them, seeking their warmth, their fear. "Run!" Jake screamed again, the word tearing from him in desperation. But would there be any escape from the inevitable? They dashed back toward the trees, the darkness throbbing with the rhythm of pursuit. Was this creature the end of their stories, or merely the beginning of true terror? As they fled, the laughter echoed once more, now layered with something sinister, as if the forest itself was joining in. What secrets lay hidden in the woods, waiting to be uncovered in the shadows? Just ahead, a new terror beckoned, its song draping over the night like a funeral shroud. Branches whipped past them as they tore through the undergrowth, the creature's breath hot on their heels. Jake could feel Sam's small hand slipping from his, and he pulled the boy closer, the fear radiating from him like heat. They had to keep moving. The forest was alive, and danger lurked in every shadow, a silent predator just waiting for an opportunity. "Dad, what is that thing?" Sam panted, struggling to keep up. "I don't know," Jake shouted back, forcing his legs to push harder. "Just stay with me." A guttural growl echoed from behind them, sending a fresh wave of adrenaline coursing through Jake. He pushed through the fear, focusing on the path ahead. "There, look!" he yelled, spotting a narrow trail cutting through the trees, barely visible but promising a potential escape. Jake grabbed Sam's shoulder, steering him toward the faint outline of the path. The air was thick with sweat and desperation, each step becoming increasingly labored. They stumbled onto the trail, the ground softer beneath their feet as they darted away from the creature's pursuit. But every instinct screamed at Jake that it was still out there, watching, waiting. As they ran, the laughter returned, echoing through the trees, taunting, mocking, weaving around them like a ghostly veil. It was everywhere, collapsing into a cacophony of soul-chilling whispers. "Jake, I can't keep up," Sam cried, his voice breaking. "We have to go," Jake shouted, catching a glimpse over his shoulder. The creature was gone, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted, of being prey in a gruesome game. The width of the trail narrowed, branches tangling around them like a web, closing in. They stumbled into a small clearing, moonlight spilling onto the ground, illuminating a curious sight. Standing before them was an old stone well, overgrown with moss and creeping vines. A strange aura surrounded it, an unsettling silence that felt heavier than the air before. "What's that?" Sam ventured, voice barely above a whisper.
"An old well. It looks like it hasn't been used in ages," Jake replied, breathing heavily. "We should keep going." But his feet were glued too.
The earth. Something about the well drew him in, a force gripping his chest. The darkness within it felt alive, pulsating with possibilities. A voice erupted in his mind, soft yet insistent. "Look within, Jake. Look within." "Dad?" Sam tugged at his sleeve, tension rippling through him. "I don't like it here. I want to go." Jake shook his head, trying to break the spell that the well had cast. But just as he turned to leave, a figure loomed from the darkness behind them, its eyes gleaming with a hungry light, every twitch and movement invoking the pure terror of the unknown. "Too late," the creature hissed, its voice a sickening blend of seduction and threat. "You're already part of the game." And in that moment, Jake felt a rope tighten around his heart, a realization dawning on him like a cold light. This was no ordinary game. This was a hunt, and they were the prey. "Run!" he screamed again, fear bursting forth. But as they turned to flee, the ground shook violently, and the well erupted in a blinding flash, consuming the clearing in a chaotic whirl of mist and shadows. Sam screamed as Jake pulled him close, but it was too late. A loud, piercing wail cut through the chaos, drowning out their cries. They were swept into the unknown, but not before Jake caught one last glimpse of the creature smiling, its eyes filled with a dark satisfaction. Would they escape the clutches of the forest, or were they destined to join the ranks of those lost to its eternal night? The world spun as a harsh wind blasted through them, disorienting Jake. He shielded Sam from the raging mist, straining to see in the blinding turmoil. Panic gripped him, a vice around his throat. Each breath burned with the acrid scent of damp earth and rotten leaves. As the mist began to clear, they found themselves not in the familiar confines of the forest path, but in a different realm. An expanse drenched in shadows, creeping vines hanging like twisted fingers from the branches overhead. The trees here were warped, their gnarled roots protruding like skeletal hands reaching for the ground. "Where are we?" Sam quivered, his voice echoing in this strange place. Jake's heart raced. "I don't know, buddy. Just stay close." But as he scanned their surroundings, fear twisted in his gut. There were remnants of the camp, charred remains of a forgotten fire pit, the skeletal carcass of a tent lying crumpled like an old design. A chill swept through the air, thick with an oppressive heaviness. The laughter returned, shrill and resounding, dancing through the darkness. It was closer now, pounding against their ears like thunder, wrapping around them, twisting and turning. Jake pressed a hand to his head, feeling the terror climb like ice in his veins. "Make it stop!" Sam cried, clutching Jake's sleeve, his wide eyes glistening with tears. "I'm trying," Jake barked. "Keep your voice down." But with it, the desperate plea morphed into silent screams. He had no answer, no escape, and every passing second deepened the torment drumming in his chest. As they stepped further into the shadows, the ground trembled. Something lurked beneath the surface, a heartbeat so loud it almost drowned out their own. Jake felt a tremor of realization. They weren't just lost. They had stepped into something alive, something hungry. "Run!" he shouted, pulling Sam along before he could think about it. They darted toward a flicker of moonlight ahead, but the shadows danced behind them like hungry spirits, a chorus of whispers begging them to turn around. "That way, Dad! Let's go that way!" Sam pointed toward an opening between two trees. Jake forced himself to focus, but his world narrowed to the fear pounding inside him. "Stay close! Don't lag behind!" But as they sprinted, Jake stumbled, his foot catching on a root. Cursed vines coiling around his ankle. They tugged, pulling him down, dragging him toward the depths of the tangled darkness. He gasped, fighting against the hold. "Sam, go! Get to the light!" "No!" Sam shouted, his voice cracking. Jake felt the boy's hesitation, the sheer helplessness tearing at him like the roots at his foot. "Run!" Jake managed to scream, desperation clawing in his throat as he wrestled with the vines. With a final frantic tug, he broke free, but the scream followed him, a chorus of voices now screaming in anguish, twisting through the night air. He scrambled to his feet just as Sam reached the edge of the clearing. The boy turned, tears rolling down his cheeks, eyes wide with fear. "Dad, please, don't leave me!" Jake's heart flipped in his chest. There was no time to reason. He bolted toward his son. But suddenly, an explosion of darkness erupted from the trees. The creature emerging, a silhouette carved from nightmares, its mouth twisting into a grin sharp enough to slice through hope. "Don't you want to play?" it taunted, a voice wrapped in malice. Jake pushed Sam behind him, adrenaline shooting through his veins. "Run! Don't stop!" They dashed again, the forest shifting around them, as the trees seemed to mock their escape, branches reaching for them like predatory hands. But with every step, the weight of dread pulled at them. The laughter grew louder, hotter, threatening to consume them whole. Just as they neared the edge of what they hoped was safety, the laughter ceased. A deafening silence fell, and in that moment they could hear their hearts pounding, wild and frantic. A figure stood before them, partially obscured, whispers curling around it like smoke. "You can't leave," it rasped, an edge of malice creeping into each syllable. Jake's breath snagged in his throat, and he felt Sam press against his back, trembling. He realized, in that gut-wrenching moment, that perhaps this place wasn't meant to be escaped. "Sam, whatever happens, don't look away. Keep your eyes on me." The figure moved forward, shadows spilling from its back.
Body like oil. Jake's hands clenched into fists. But just as they braced for the unimaginable, a light flickered in the distance, a point of hope breaking the darkness. "What is that?" Sam asked, hope flickering behind his gaze. Jake didn't have the answer. "Let's find out." In that instant, the laughter returned, engulfing them, welcoming them to a darker game. But under that, buried beneath the fear, a grim thought coalesced, a dreadful curiosity gnawing at the edges of his mind. What if some roads lead nowhere, and the one they followed was an invitation to join the hunted? The light flickered uncertainly, casting long skeletal shadows that twisted across the ground, pulsing like a heartbeat. Hope surged in Jake, but doubt crept in too, gnawing at his resolve. They had been offered a glimmer of salvation, yet the darkness slithered around them, making the prospect feel uncanny. "Let's go," he urged, heart racing faster than his legs could carry him. With Sam trailing closely, they stumbled through the underbrush, branches snapping like bones as they pushed forward into the unknown. The laughter followed them, echoing through the trees, wrapping around their limbs like a suffocating shroud. Every step Jake took felt heavier, as if the very ground was intent on binding them to this nightmare. As they neared the source of the light, it drew Jake's gaze. A flickering lantern, suspended in mid-air, illuminating a small clearing alight with soft golden hues. In the strange gloom, it seemed almost inviting. He scanned for danger, but only darkness greeted him. "Dad, I think it's magic," Sam whispered, his eyes wide with wonder despite the terror surrounding them. "Stay close," Jake replied, words flowing like ice. He could feel the pull of the shadows that trailed them, the creature lurking just at the edge of his vision, lurking beyond the veil of golden light. Without warning, the lantern's warm glow dimmed, flickering as if caught in a tempest. Jake stepped tentatively into the light, the air thick with unnameable tension. The laughter faded to a whisper, then vanished entirely. leaving an eerie silence that enveloped them like a thick fog. "Where did the light go?" Sam asked, pulling on Jake's sleeve, eyes darting around. Fear twisted tighter inside Jake. Had they stepped into a trap? Suddenly, the shadows retreated, recoiling from the lantern's weak illumination, and the trees around them shifted, their gnarled branches creaking like ancient bones. Jake backed up instinctively, pulling Sam closer. But then he saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows. A woman, clad in tattered rags, her eyes like dark abysses, void of light. "Help me," she pleaded, voice hollow, filled with despair. Jake's instinct screamed at him to run, to pull Sam away. "Don't move," he shouted, urgency surging through his veins. But Sam seemed entranced, stepping toward the apparition, drawn in by something only he could sense. "Dad, she needs us," Sam said softly, his voice trembling. "No, Sam, come back," Jake yelled. But the boy's tiny feet moved of their own accord. Jake lunged, heart pounding, reaching for Sam, just as the woman's gaze latched onto him. In the depths of her eyes, Jake saw shadows writhing like serpents, twisting and curling around her being. The abrupt shift in the atmosphere rattled him to the core. "Sam, no!" The woman's smile widened, baring too many teeth. The sound of crackling laughter rushing back, cascading as a torrent through the trees. "Just let him play," she hissed, words dripping with vile sweetness. Everything happened at once. The dark laughter slammed against them like a physical force, and the light flickered violently. Sam's face twisted in confusion before surrendering, reaching out to the woman. Jake shot forward, fear igniting his senses. But the moment he touched Sam's shirt, the world exploded into a whirlwind of obscured shapes and shrieks. The clearing vanished, swallowed whole by a gaping maw of darkness lit only by the now flickering lantern. "Sam!" Jake screamed. But the shadows embraced him too, warping his vision, drenching him in terror. A jarring silence enveloped them, pulling tight like a noose, leaving only Jake standing alone, his heart battering against his chest. The weight of despair crushed him. Within that silence, he felt the dread curl in his stomach like a snake waiting to strike. "Where are you?" he choked out, but his voice splintered against the gathering dark. And then, from the depths of the void, that same hollow voice echoed back, mocking, insistent. "Play with us." Jake's pulse raced. This was no mere game. They had awakened something hungry, something that thrived in the desperation of the lost. He swallowed hard, steeling himself. He had to find Sam. Somehow, somewhere, amidst the shadows, he would break free from this nightmare. But where to start when every path led deeper into darkness? As he stood frozen, dread pooling in his gut, he felt eyes watching him from every corner of the void, waiting for the moment he would succumb to despair. He shook his head sharply. "No, I won't give in." And in that instant, a new light appeared in the distance, a beacon against the encroaching blackness. But even as he turned toward it, a terrible realization dawned upon him. What if this light was just another illusion, a trap laid to ensnare the desperate? Jake took a deep breath. "For Sam," he muttered, his voice steady, and began to move toward it. But the shadows shifted again, whispering secrets only the damned could hear. Would he find salvation, or was he heading toward the beast's den? Movement caught his eye, a flicker just behind him. Was it Sam, or something far worse? The race against the darkness had only just begun. Jake stumbled toward the light, his breath quickening, heart pounding. Each step felt heavy, as if the darkness beneath him was trying to snatch him from the ground. The world around him seemed to breathe. Inhale, exhale, a pulsing rhythm that matched the frantic beats of his heart.
Was no time for hesitation. "Sam!" he shouted again, desperation lacing his voice. The light flickered, dancing as if caught in a playful wind, but it held a sickening allure, a promise of something that felt wrong. He could almost hear a whisper carried on the breeze, a beckoning, teasing sound that melted into the shadows, taunting him. He pushed through the underbrush, eyes darting, searching for any sign of his son. The light grew nearer, brighter, casting grotesque shadows that twisted like arms reaching out to grab him. Where is Sam? The thought roared in his mind. The sensation of being watched intensified, cold pricks of dread crawling up his spine. He stopped, listening, desperately straining for any sound that might lead him to his son. The hollow laugh of the woman echoed again, filling the air, merging with the rustling of leaves, and Jake could almost feel her breath against the back of his neck. Then, a small whimper broke through the oppressive silence. Jake's heart jolted. That was Sam. He spun around, searching. "Sam!" he called, voice raw, ready to shatter. "Dad!" Sam's voice echoed, fragile yet clear. It wrapped around Jake, pulling him. The darkness shifted, revealing a path veiled by shadows. A flicker of movement caught his eye as something darted across the path. Was it Sam? He moved instinctively, desperation fueling his legs as he dashed forward. In the tangled vines and branches, he felt the cool breath of night brush against his cheek, almost icy in contrast to the warmth of his racing blood. The laughter of the woman twisted into something guttural, as if she was feeding off his urgency. "Come play," she taunted with a chilling sing-song rhythm. "Sam, hold on!" Jake yelled again, voice breaking. But another sound rippled through the night, a thudding, slow and heavy, echoing through the trees. His heart dropped as an ominous presence lurked just beyond the edge of the glow, nearly blending into the shadows, yet undeniably there. Was this the monster they had awakened? The idea sent a shiver coursing down his spine. Just a little further, he whispered to himself, forced to believe there had to be a way out of here. The path grew narrower, tight with bramble and thorns, each step leaving Jake more exposed to the shadows that whispered secrets, each promise dark and suffocating. Suddenly, the light dimmed again, casting the forest into deeper shadows. The laughter returned, louder now, overlapping with whispers that sent pulsing dread into his bones. Despair wrapped around him. What if he couldn't find Sam? What if the shadows swallowed him before he ever got the chance to reach his boy? A flicker in the trees pulled his attention back. There was movement, a figure, and then, yes, a small hand reached out through the darkness. "Dad, help!" Jake lunged forward, racing toward the trembling form. But just as he reached for Sam, the shadows thickened in response, writhing and closing in around them. "Play with us." Fear clawed once more, closer now, sour and enticing. Fear clawed at him, pulling him back, but he fought against it, refusing to yield. In one desperate moment, he grasped Sam's hand, feeling the warmth squeeze back, solid, real. Relief swelled, but it was short-lived. The darkness let out a low growl that reverberated through the ground, shaking Jake to his core. "We have to go!" he shouted, but the ground beneath them began to shift, dark tendrils curling around their ankles, trying to drag them backward into the abyss. "No one leaves," the hollow voice hissed, and the shadows around them vibrated with ominous energy, pushing against Jake and Sam. Jake's mind raced, torn between holding on to his son and breaking free from the choking grip of the dark. There must be a way. He couldn't let this thing win. With a primal yell, he pulled Sam close, forcing Kim through a narrow gap where the shadows pulled back slightly, trembling almost as if afraid. Just ahead, the light pulsed again, stronger now, a brighter beacon in the swirling dark. They could make it. But the hostile laughter erupted once more, ringing in his ears as the shadows lunged deeper, revealing a mass of twisted faces and forms, each one screaming for help that would never come. "No, you will not escape!" Adrenaline shot through him as he held on to his son tightly. They raced toward the light, but every ounce of Jake's determination was tested. Would they break free or be pulled back into eternal night? As they reached the edge of the clearing, just inches from the safety of the light, Jake felt a cold rush behind him. The shadows lunged, fangs gleaming in the flickering illumination, grasping desperately for their prey. "Hold tight!" Jake screamed, just as the darkness surged forward, trying to swallow them whole. The light flickered wildly, and Jake braced himself for the impact. There was a flash. Everything went white, and Jake found himself thrown violently into nothing. Where had the light gone? "Dad?" Sam's whisper pierced the silence. The world was still wrapped in darkness, but fear surged again as Jake realized they weren't done yet. Wherever they were now, one thing was unavoidable. They were far from safe. What had they awakened? The darkness slowly began to lift, revealing a desolate landscape. Jake and Sam found themselves standing on a narrow strip of cracked earth, surrounded by looming shadows that stretched infinitely into the horizon. There was no sign of the cacophony of laughter or the swarming darkness. Only an oppressive silence hung in the air. "Where are we?" Sam whimpered, clutching onto Jake's arm tightly. "I don't know, but we need to keep moving," Jake replied, forcing down the panic rising like bile in his throat. He scanned their surroundings, instincts kicking in. They had escaped the creature's grip, but the eerie emptiness felt like an even greater threat. He led Sam along the cracked path, each footfall echoing in the quiet.
The immediate threat may have receded, but Jake felt the weight of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. "There's gotta be a way out," he murmured to himself, desperation creeping into his voice. As they walked, the landscape morphed, jagged rocks giving way to twisted, thorny vines that snaked across their path. The howling wind whipped around them, carrying whispers that clawed at Jake's mind, taunting, beckoning. "Keep your head up, buddy," Jake said, looking down at Sam, who appeared small and fragile. The boy's bravado had faded, and he struggled to swallow against the fear that was building within both of them. Then, without warning, a warm, golden light flickered in the distance. It was weak but inviting, a stark contrast to the gloom that surrounded them. Jake's heart surged. "Look, we can make it!" They sped toward the light, feeling the darkness recede slightly with each step. But as they approached, Jake noticed the shadows gathering at the edges, wings of darkness unfurling, preparing to follow. "Faster!" he urged Sam, fear splicing into his voice. Sam's little legs worked hard to keep up, pumping and moving, determination brightening his otherwise terrified expression. They finally broke through the prickly vines into the clearing. Before them stood a beautiful, grand tree, its trunk wide and ancient, wrapped in shimmering light. The whispers around them fading to a silence so profound that it felt sacred. "Is it safe?" Sam whispered, gazing up at the tree that seemed to sway gently against the wind, glimmering with life like hope personified. "I think so," Jake replied, stepping closer to the thick trunk. A deep sense of calm washed over him, almost magnetic. "It looks like it wants us to come closer?" As they approached, the tree began to hum, a low thrum vibrating through the air. The light pulsed brighter, allowing them to see intricate symbols carved into its bark and mesmerizing patterns swirling with energy. Jake felt a surge of recognition. Those symbols mirrored the haunting ones they had seen etched into trees during their first nights of camping. This was the heart of the forest, the force that kept the unseen darkness at bay. "Maybe it can help us," Jake said softly, reaching out. Sam squeezed his hand, the warmth of their connection grounding him amidst the swirling chaos. The moment Jake's fingers grazed the surface of the tree, a rush of energy coursed through him. Images flashed in his mind, memories of laughter, of warmth, of love. The tree wasn't just a lifeline, it was a sanctuary. "Release them!" A voice boomed from nowhere and everywhere, resonating deep within them. The shadows around the clearing convulsed, the cacophony of laughter spiraling into a cacophony of anguish. "Dad? Trust me, Sam. Hold on tight," Jake yelled, and then he shouted to the tree, "We want to go home. Help us!" In that moment, the tree responded, its bark glowing with an intense, radiant light. That pulsed in wave-like motions. The shadows recoiled, drawn back by the power emanating from the majestic being. Suddenly, from the heart of the tree, a powerful energy exploded outward, encircling Jake and Sam in a warm cocoon of light. "You are not just lost, you are loved. You fight for each other." The voice enveloped them, reassuring and powerful. "Let go of the fear, embrace the light." "It's time," Jake declared, feeling courage rise within him. He could almost hear Mia's laughter ringing in his ears, the joy they had shared far outweighing the darkness. "We can do this." Jake and Sam interlocked their fingers tighter. With one final surge of bravery, they turned toward the gathering darkness. "Leave us!" Jake cried, defiance roaring through his veins. "We choose light!" The shadows hissed and wailed, their cruel tones wrapping around them like chains. But the light spiraled outward, pushing the darkness back, illuminating the path ahead. As the light swallowed them, Jake felt warmth radiate deep within him. The light was insistent, guiding them back home, where they belonged. Jake whispered to Sam, "Together we can break free." "Together," Sam echoed, his voice filled with new conviction. In one breathtaking instant, the dark shadows flickered and faded, unable to withstand the bright blaze of their essence. And with the final surge of energy, everything exploded into pure brilliance. Suddenly, Jake and Sam found themselves standing at the foot of their campsite, the fire crackling peacefully in front of them, the stars twinkling overhead, not a hint of the terror they had just faced. It was as if they had never left, the sweet scent of pine and the familiar sounds of nature surrounding them. "Dad," Sam cried, joy flooding his face, "we made it!" Jake looked around, disbelief mingling with overwhelming relief. "We did," he whispered, tears glistening in his eyes, tasting the sweetness of survival. In the distance, Mia's voice drifted through the air. "Hey, you guys took forever!" Jake's heart swelled as he held Sam close. They were back. They were free. And as he gazed around, he realized that the darkness might always lurk somewhere in the shadows, but the light they had discovered, love, courage, family, would always guide them home. Together they could face anything. The end. But wait, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next heart-pounding adventure. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Let's show YouTube what true fans look like. And flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world.